Actually have Dogmatika for you today. The Fishy Fish are back. We have Numeron and many other top OTS championship deck lists. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more Oz content. So the first thing we're going to be looking at here is good old Albazoa and friends showing up here, actually doing what it needs to do here. And, you know, the big 4K here that lets you literally start doing some pretty interesting things. We've seen builds like this show up before, but it doesn't really stick around too often. I mean, obviously, it's essentially just Dogmatika, good stuff, with, you know, the Fleur-de-Lis / Maximus, and you go through the Albazoa place to kind of punish your opponent. It's nice that the deck does have a boss monster to functionally be able to tear through your opponent, and of course, you know, you have punishments to fling at your opponent, and then the extra deck resources to kind of punish them off of it, and of course, yeah, we do get to play window. We've seen how degenerate that this is. It just takes one Maximus to kind of set this all up. And, nah, just kidding. We're not even playing the app clone stuff. The window's just vibing here for no reason. Okay, next up here, we have a interesting take on Alistar the Invoker / good stuff. And this is interesting. I see that we are playing Jhon the Spiritualist in here, instead of going with the gimmick Puppet Lock. Now, has the meta evolved to the point that, you know, putting a Jhon on the field to stop your opponent from getting the chance to special summon better than actually having your opponent to be jammed by the gimmick Puppet Lock? I don't actually know. I think that this is an interesting little take for the evolution of the deck. I mean, you already got to keep in mind that, you know, Alistar good stuff is going to be kind of carrying you along the way, because, you know, obviously you want to set up Makaba next to whatever, you know, branded package line that you're going to be going down. So you've got to keep in mind that this deck does have the differences in little engines that you'll be able to interchange and mess around with, but it does kind of showcase, you know, Alistar just kind of falls right on into the lap of Invoked for a lot of these OTS events. Next up here, we have Floodgate deck. 40 smackaroos here, and 26 of those are Purpleberry cards, ensuring that your opponent is not. And you do see here that we do strip down a majority of the Labyrinth package. We just play the one Ariana with your triple Lady Labyrinth. None of the other Labyrinth stuff. No field spells. We're just riding out Necro Valley. So, yeah, the very famous Labyrinth card that a majority of duelists tend to love in this deck. No. And let's see that we're sporting off the one copy of There Can Only Be One. Also, the double metaverse. Cool part is, I mean, you can beam on into this and typically just punish your opponent. I think honestly having a Necro Valley with a skill drain face up with a relatively large number of monsters here should probably net you a pretty big win. Like, let's call it what it is at this point. Like, you'll take your free W's where you can get, especially if you're snowball advantaging, you know, big monsters. Next up here, I see that we have Vanquish Soul. We've not seen, it's not like Vanquish Soul's not sitting here in the meta, but the deck has kind of found itself struggling a lot more with today's meta, and I think that's fine. You do see here that we are sporting off the shifters, of course, the Fenrir to pull our fire target so we can have it for the reveals. And, of course, most of these builds have cut down to only one copy of Kaiser Varius. As much as I want to be like, yeah, Kaiser's still a good card, no, most of the TCG doesn't even want to play this. I mean, you'll see your occasional build that'll show up, you know, playing Kurikara, trying to spice things up themselves, but majority of these duelists, they're just not going for it. And I perfectly understand that. Like, it doesn't really help for a majority of the little combo lines. So, interesting, of course, the trap sticks around, and you do see that we are sporting off, once again, the triple There Can Only Be No Fun Allowed for the opponent. Interesting, to say the least. Next up here, we have Sharks. Yes. Finally, something a little bit more exciting out here. You are seeing the Mini Aruka kind of starting to show up as a pretty good extension card for this deck. Like, this helps out immensely. I see that, of course, we're sticking around to the two Ice Barriers here, and of course, the full use of burial goods for the Ice Barrier ends up being a stupid good search for this deck. I do not underestimate what you actually can do because of, you know, the little package here. I also see post side decking, we get access to the spiritual water art out. You gotta love the fact you can start messing around with your opponent's hand, start getting into the hand rips, and your opponent will just be like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, this isn't really, you know, all that fair. Well, it's just kind of how the cookie crumbles, I feel like, at this point, you know, especially for how this deck wants to play. So good stuff to actually seeing this show up and do well. Next up here, we have some Drron. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Drron has been a little bit more struggling out here, but most of the victories this deck is going to have are going to be because of our dear friend skipping your opponent's main phase one. You know, it also takes away effectively their battle phase going second. So this deck wants to make sure that you can find and, you know, set up that mini package. Now, we're not playing the Thunder of Ruler, which I'm not going to lie, I always find that to be a little bit cheesy, you know, at the end of the day, that you skip their battle phase, you skip their whole turn, but no, this deck is just focusing on this, and then kind of cleaning up whatever else they might have. And of course, Lancia has been sticking around for a huge mainstay in this deck for quite some time now. I mean, when you have a searchable card that can pretty much handle a majority of the little banish interruptions. We do not have a side deck. This event chose not to post them for whatever reason, so a little bit disappointing, but okay. Next up here, we have Exos Sister out of that very same OTS. Now, interesting enough, I see that we are seeing the Forbidden Lances actually showing up here. So what I'm getting out of that is people are kind of heading more towards Lance for defensive options, which is kind of cool, actually. I like that, you know, you can actually see Lance kind of returning back to the format here, but you don't have books and things like that to kind of cancel out anymore. This is just kind of an out to handle Rescue Ace doing its set plays, so you can kind of go ahead and overcome things. Now, once again, I mean, Rescue Ace has kind of already had some issues this format itself, so it's interesting to see, you know, how people are kind of evolving and heading towards these other doors here with ideas. I thought this format was absolutely boring at the end of the day, but looks like people are trying out some interesting ideas. Okay, next up here. Oh, baby. I love me some Runic. Of course, this is not a video without this. Now, we're playing Double Dark Hole. This is actually interesting. So this at least gives you some main deck outs, not in the form of the flashing fires here. So you can kind of clean up anything that your opponent might be cooking that is troublesome. Of course, we're only playing 2 copies of Yamano in this. I also think that that's fine. You know, you establish the big rock, you're going to try to start winning the game. I also see that we're not playing Doomsday Star, and we're not playing SP Little Knight. I don't know if they were on a budget or not, but for my personal testing, Doomsday Star is absolutely mandatory in this deck. Doomsday Star gives you a going second card after resolving a runic spell to put a body and a bounce on the field. And that can be incredibly powerful in telling you that you're going to win or lose a match. So do not, and I repeat, do not try to play this deck without those two, at least the Doomsday Star, because it helps out so much. Next up here, we have our Numeron Gas. This is actually really cute. So, see that we are playing Pinkertops in here. This does give you a special summon pop something, a forced interaction. I see that we are playing Dark Holes in here. And then we have the 2 copies of the Cheese Limiter Removal. So you can slap this down and attempt to win the game. Depending. I mean, honestly, if it is a pretty big combo line, but as long as you can see the network into the calling, into the limiter removal, I mean, you should have game off of a possible board clear, or, you know, depending on how things go, if you have a lava golem, you should be winning the game right there. This deck is still the incredible cheese that it has always been. Nothing has changed that whatsoever, so I still think you should give this deck a shot, all right? Especially, maybe Megaclops is an incredibly good card right now, and maybe we've underestimated how stupid good this card can actually be. And our last list for today is actually an Eldritch list, also showcasing what it can do. I see that we are playing a Necworld Banshee in here, so that you can kind of go ahead and see those zombie worlds. Don't underestimate, you know, an actual zombie deck being able to make zombie world, because Boulder Ro is a stupid card. I cannot emphasize to you how many times Boulder Ro actually plopping its butt onto the field each and every turn, as long as there's a field spell face up, that you will probably just lose the game. Like, it's actually kind of crazy to me how stupid this little guy can actually be. So that is everything that we have for you today. Some very interesting little ideas, but I like what I'm seeing. So please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.